How long should I stay with my strength training program before I switch to something else like physique or power focused training?
Yeah,
Question.
it's a great question.
Yeah.
We get this question a lot. I think we got kind of getting inside the head of somebody who's looking at their program going, what else should I be doing? Like, when do I move on from where I'm at? Or when do I hop programs? And I think that's probably the bigger thing. Like, how long do I stay in this strength and muscle building program before it's time for me to do power, right? Or to do endurance or something like that. And the answer to this is it depends on your goal, obviously. But if your goal is just to be a stronger, healthier, happier person, you don't ever have to leave that program.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other end of it is stay there forever. If it's programmed correctly and structured correctly, you can keep doing that forever. There is no reason to leave there at all. And so obviously that leaves some things to talk about in the middle.
Well, and I think in the middle, I think there's probably two aspects of this. One is, do you feel that you have really hit a plateau or your body's kind of rejecting that training phase? I think that's one way to go. And really with that though, like, have you given it its time? So if you did 2 weeks and you're like, all right, I'm done with this, give it a little bit longer. But if you get to that point where you're like, your numbers aren't going up, you're just feeling beat up, you're just hitting the same things over and over again, maybe even you're regressing over time, that's one aspect. But on the other aspect, if we're thinking of someone who's kind of trying to be just generally well-rounded, just generally trying to move through these different phases, trying to be able to be adept at all these different modalities or let's say whatever, modalities, that's not the correct term. But with that is maybe from there, if you're trying to thinking of trying to change things up, like if you're just feeling burnt out, if you've been powerlifting for a long time, you've been training just as a strength athlete and you're just feeling you have no buy-in to it anymore, that also might be another sign to try a different style of training from there. So,
yeah, that's a really good point. I think if I'm looking at it from inside the person's head, maybe my approach would be like, is this person coming from like some level of anxiety or anxiousness, like they're not doing enough or they're supposed to change? Yeah. No, you don't have to do anything. Like, there's no reason for you to change if you're happy doing that. You're getting the result that you're looking for. It's satisfying the things that you need to do. I'm not saying, don't change the exercise selection, don't change the intensity, and don't change the volume, but strength training specific, like training for strength or muscle building. Is there some reason why you should come out of that? And you just mentioned a couple of those things. Again, I'm going to go back to my answer is there's no reason for you to do that unless it somehow supports your goal. Yeah. Or, or your goals aren't being met and there might be a reason to come outside of it, to explore something different for a while and then jump in. Here's another thing to think about. Like, depends on, that's part of the depends is like, where are you in your journey here? If you are let's say a novice to even intermediate, lifter, the gains that you can get by continually cycling back through or periodizing your strength or muscle building and strength program will go on for a long time. But as you get more advanced and you get to a certain point where you're starting to peak as an athlete or you're starting to peak in terms of how much intensity can I really load on here? How much volume can I really load on here? Then things become a lot more complex. And anybody that's telling you different than that is lying to you, because as an individual, there are very specific things that you may need to tweak and understand at a much deeper level with a coach even to help you continue to get those gains. And I'm not saying you need to change out of your program. I'm just saying the adjustments within that program, that muscle and strength building program, are going to be, they're going to get a lot more detailed and there's going to be a lot more complexity to this. So, to ask the question, how long should I be here before I jump out? Again, that's going to be dependent on the goal. But this idea of program hopping, I think, comes up because people are like, well, what's the next the next best thing? One of the litmuses to this on if your shit's working, then if you're getting gains, if you're building muscle,
if it's not broken, don't fix it.
And you're building strength, don't be so anxious to drop that and walk away from it. So again, like if you're measuring, you're kind of tracking, then you can manage this a little bit differently. But again, like if it's working, why would you want to come out of it? That would be my question. Because that answer then dictates a lot of different things. Like, well, I want to be faster. or I want to, there's a physique thing here, goal or whatever else. Well, then in that case, you're probably still going to be doing the same type of stuff. We just may need to make some minor tweaks. So the emphasis will change based on your goal.
So when you were talking about, just for the listener, when you were talking about the complexity of the things that might change in your strength training program, are you talking about the volume? So maybe doing 8s versus up to like 15s or 20s? Are you talking about doing tempos outside of changing the exercise?